The wind howled around the high-rise balcony, cutting through my thin blazer like ice. Melody's mother Vivian gripped my wrist with a strength that belied her age, her eyes wild with a lifetime of unspoken pain. "Don't leave her like I left the only woman who ever made me feel alive," she whispered fiercely as the Chicago rain began to pour down around us. I stood frozen, my mind reeling from the words that had just shattered the careful walls I had built around my heart. Just hours earlier I had been at the office packing for our big business trip to Los Angeles with Melody, my colleague, and the woman who had quietly become the center of my world over the past 6 months. Now here I was at the Hayes family home where Melody had insisted we stop for dinner before our flight tomorrow, being confronted by her mother with a secret that changed everything. It started innocently enough at Carter Marketing in downtown Chicago. Melody Hayes joined the team as my project partner on the West Coast expansion campaign. She was sharp-witty and had this way of looking at me during meetings that made the air feel thicker. At first I told myself it was professional admiration. I was Gemma Thompson, 28 years old, climbing the corporate ladder, with a carefully curated image of the dedicated single professional. Coming out was not part of the plan, especially not in an industry where perception was everything and one misstep could cost promotions, or even the job itself. But late nights working on presentations turned into shared takeout dinners, and deep conversations about life, dreams, and the pressures we both faced from our families. Melody spoke often about her conservative upbringing, her father a retired judge, and her mother who seemed so put together, yet carried a sadness in her eyes that I could not quite place. I shared my own struggles with a distant family back in Ohio who expected me to settle down with a nice man and start a family. The phone calls every Sunday filled with questions about my dating life that left me feeling hollow. We bonded over the weight of those expectations, the way they shaped every decision from what we wore to how we spoke in boardrooms. The business trip to LA was a major opportunity. We were pitching to a huge client that could double our department's revenue and secure the promotion we both desperately wanted. The company booked us a suite with 2 rooms, but as the date approached I felt a mix of excitement and terror. What if the time alone brought us closer? What if it forced me to confront the feelings I had been burying for months? The way her laugh made my chest tighten, or how her hand brushing mine while passing documents sent sparks I could not ignore. That evening at the Hayes home, Melody had been so happy to have me there, showing me around the house, pointing out childhood photos, and laughing about old family stories. Vivian had been warm at first, asking about my work and life, serving homemade lasagna, and asking thoughtful questions that made me feel seen. Then after dinner, while Melody was helping her father with something in the study, Vivian pulled me aside. "Come with me, Gemma," she said, her voice low. "I need to talk to you privately." We stepped onto the balcony and the rain started just as she closed the door behind us. Her story poured out in a rush, the love she had for a woman named Claire in her 20s, the joy they shared in secret, the terror when family discovered it, and the choice she made to walk away, marrying Melody's father to keep peace and security. "I lost her forever," Vivian said, her voice breaking. "She died 5 years ago and I never got to say goodbye properly. I see the way you look at my daughter, Gemma. Don't make my mistake. Don't run away when it gets hard." The rain soaked my clothes, but I barely felt it, my mind racing with the implications. I had suspected Melody felt the same, but hearing it from her mother made it undeniable. I stammered something about us just being friends, but Vivian shook her head. "I know my daughter. And I know you are scared. But love like this is rare. Fight for it or you will carry the same emptiness I do." I excused myself soon after, my heart pounding. Melody noticed my distraction on the drive back to my apartment, but I brushed it off as nerves about the trip. That night I barely slept, replaying Vivian's confession and wondering if I had the strength to face what was coming. The next morning at the airport, Melody was her usual vibrant self, chatting about the pitch and the sights we could see in LA. As we boarded the plane, I felt the weight of the secret pressing down. The flight was smooth, but my mind was a storm. By the time we landed in the warm California sun, I had made a silent vow to at least explore what was between us. The trip would be our chance away from Chicago eyes. We arrived at the hotel in downtown LA, the suite overlooking the city bustling with energy. Melody unpacked in the room next to mine, laughing about the mini bar and the view. "Gemma, this is going to be amazing," she said, her smile lighting up the space. I could feel the pull stronger than ever. Our first day was all business meetings with the client team, setting up for the big presentation in 3 days. Melody shone in the room, her ideas crisp and innovative. I supported her seamlessly, our rhythm perfect. In the evening we walked along the Santa Monica Pier, the ocean breeze carrying the scent of salt and possibility. We talked late into the night back at the hotel about everything and nothing, my inner thoughts swirling with fear and hope. The warning from Vivian echoed, but so did the warmth in Melody's eyes. This could be everything or it could destroy us both. I knew the choice was coming, but for now, in the glow of the city lights, I let myself believe it was worth the risk. The days in LA blurred into a mix of high-stakes meetings and stolen moments of connection that made my heart race in ways I had never allowed before. The client loved our campaign ideas, and by the third day we were confident the deal was ours. Melody and I worked side by side in the conference room, our glances lingering a second longer than professional. No one seemed to notice, but I was hyper-aware of every touch, every shared laugh, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear when she was deep in thought. After the successful pitch, we celebrated with a team dinner, but slipped away early to explore the city. We drove up the Pacific Coast Highway, the windows down, and music playing soft rock from the radio. Melody talked about her dreams of starting her own agency one day, free from corporate constraints, the frustrations of always having to prove herself twice as hard, because she was a woman in a male-dominated field. I opened up about my fear of disappointing my parents, who still sent me articles about successful marriages and grandkids, the guilt that came with every holiday visit where I smiled and nodded through their expectations. "You don't have to live for them, Gemma," she said, pulling the car over at a scenic overlook. The ocean crashed below us, the salt air filling the car. "We get one life. Don't waste it hiding." Her words resonated deeply, cutting through the layers of denial I had built. That evening back in the suite, we sat on the balcony talking until the early hours, the city lights twinkling below like stars brought down to earth. I told her about the conversation with her mother, though I softened it, not revealing the full depth of Vivian's past to avoid overwhelming her. Melody was surprised, but not entirely. "Mom has always had this sadness. I never knew why. Maybe this explains it." We did not rush into anything physical, keeping our connection emotional and tender. Holding hands, watching the sunrise over the hills, talking about the future. What if we could build something real? It felt like the beginning of something real, and terrifying, the kind of connection that made the world feel bigger and smaller at the same time. The trip was supposed to be 4 days, but the client asked for additional sessions, so we extended by 2. Those extra days were pure bliss away from the Chicago grind. We visited the Getty Museum, walking through the art hand in hand when no one was looking, the beauty of the paintings mirroring the beauty I saw in her. Melody bought me a small painting of 2 women in a garden as a memento. "It's us," she whispered, her voice soft and full of promise. Yet cracks of doubt began to form in my mind during quiet moments. I received a call from my boss back home, praising the progress but reminding me of the upcoming promotion review. Being seen as reliable and focused was key. What would a relationship with a colleague do to that? Especially one like this, where the stakes felt so personal and vulnerable. On our last night in LA, we had dinner at a quiet beach restaurant. The waves provided a soothing backdrop, the candlelight flickering on Melody's face. Melody looked at me across the table, her expression serious yet hopeful. "When we get back, things might change. People will talk. My family might not understand. But I want to try, Gemma. I want us." I nodded, my heart full but heavy with the knowledge of what Vivian had shared. "Me too. But we have to be careful." The flight home was quiet, both of us lost in thought about re-entering reality, the warmth of California fading as we touched down in the cold Chicago wind. At the Chicago airport, we parted with a quick hug, promising to talk the next day at work. I went home alone, the emptiness hitting hard after the closeness of the trip, the balcony warning replaying in my head like a cautionary tale I could not escape. The next week at the office was a test of our resolve. We maintained professional distance, but the stolen moments in the break room or late after hours were charged with unspoken words and lingering looks. One evening after everyone left, Melody came to my office. She closed the door and we shared a hug that lingered, her head resting on my shoulder. It felt risky but right, the kind of right that made me question every safe choice I had ever made. Then came the dinner invitation from Melody. "Mom wants to have you over again. She really liked you." I agreed, knowing it would be tense after the balcony talk, but also hopeful that perhaps we could navigate this together. At the Hayes home, the atmosphere was warm on the surface. Melody's father asked about the trip, the deal, the future of the company. Vivian watched me closely, her eyes conveying the silent message of support and warning mixed together. When dessert was served, she suggested I help her with coffee in the kitchen, but instead led me back to that balcony, the rain now a light drizzle. "You didn't listen, did you?" she said once we were alone, her voice gentle but firm. "I see it in your eyes. You're in love with her. But love is not enough without courage." I left Claire because I was afraid of what people would say, what my parents would do. I lost her forever. She died 5 years ago and I never got to say goodbye properly. Don't let fear steal your chance, Gemma. Her story hit harder this time, the details she shared about the letters she kept hidden, the night she cried alone in her marriage, the way she watched Melody grow up and saw echoes of her own lost self. I felt the weight of history, the cycle of regret threatening to repeat. I promised her I would try to be strong, but inside I was torn. Was this fair to Melody to drag her into my uncertainties, the potential pain to her family, the career risks we both faced? That night after leaving, I lay in bed questioning everything. The happiness from Ella felt distant against the reality of family expectations and social judgment, the price already starting to feel heavy even before we had fully begun. Work intensified after the LA success. The client signed the contract and praise poured in from the higher-ups. The promotion was in sight for both of us, but rumors started swirling about favoritism since we had traveled together and spent so much time alone. A colleague named Sarah, whom I had considered a friend, began making comments in the break room. "You two seem awfully close after that trip. Everything okay?" I brushed it off with a laugh, but the paranoia grew inside me like a shadow. Melody and I decided to keep things very discreet, no public displays, even small ones. Our dates were private dinners at my apartment, or drives outside the city to quiet parks where we could talk freely. One weekend we drove to a small town in Wisconsin for a day trip, the leaves turning gold in the fall air. It was liberating to hold hands, openly walk through the farmer's market without fear, the vendor smiles innocent and unaware. Melody laughed freely, her head on my shoulder as we watched the sunset over the fields. In that moment all the doubts faded. "This is worth it," she said, her voice full of conviction that made my chest ache with love and fear. But upon returning, the pressure mounted. My parents called from Ohio asking when I was bringing home a boyfriend, the usual questions laced with disappointment when I said I was too busy. The guilt ate at me like acid, the lies piling up. Melody faced similar with her father, who mentioned setting her up with a colleague's son, a nice stable man from a good family. Vivian reached out to me privately via a text. "Remember what I said? Be the brave one." I couldn't be. The internal conflict deepened with every passing day. I started questioning if I was being selfish. Melody had a close-knit family, even if it was complicated. Coming out could fracture that beyond repair. My career was on the line too, one wrong move. And the promotion, the stability, the respect I had worked so hard for would vanish. Was love enough to justify the potential pain to everyone involved? The sleepless nights, the whispered judgments. Then the first real test came. At a company happy hour, Sarah pulled me aside, her eyes sharp. "I saw you and Melody leaving together last week. Are you two, you know?" I denied it quickly, my face flushing, but her smirk told me she didn't believe it. The next day at work, the atmosphere felt different, whispers in the hallways, sideways glances from teammates. Melody was upset when I told her, her face paling. "We can't let this derail us." But I saw the fear in her eyes too, the same fear that had kept Vivian silent for decades. That night we argued for the first time, our voices low, but tense, in my apartment. "Maybe we should slow down," she suggested, the words stinging like betrayal, even though I understood her caution, the need to protect what we had built. I spent the night alone replaying our trip, the balcony warnings, the pure joy in LA. The happiness seemed like a dream fading against the reality closing in fast, the cost already manifesting in small ways. The following week brought more strain. The client in LA wanted a follow-up presentation and suggested one of us fly back. The boss chose me, leaving Melody behind. At the airport, she hugged me tightly, her arms strong. "Come back soon. We need to talk about us." In LA alone, I had time to think, walking the same pier we had visited, the waves reminding me of her laugh, her touch. I called her every night, our conversations deep and loving but tinged with anxiety about the future, the what-ifs piling up. On the third day there, I received a call from Vivian. She had heard from Melody about the rumors. "Gemma, you must decide. Don't let society dictate your heart." I did, and I lost years of happiness. Her call strengthened my resolve temporarily. When I returned to Chicago, I told Melody we needed to be honest with ourselves at least. She agreed, and we spent a beautiful evening together talking about telling her family first, since Vivian already knew the plan, feeling both empowering and terrifying. But as we planned the conversation, the betrayal happened. Sarah had apparently told another coworker who was friends with Melody's father. The news reached the Hayes home before we could control it, the secret out in the open like a wound exposed to air. The call from Melody came at midnight, her voice breaking through the phone line. My dad knows. He is furious. Mom tried to calm him, but he is demanding I end it. Come over tomorrow. We need to face this together. I arrived at the family home the next morning, the tension thick enough to choke on the air felt heavy with unspoken accusations. Melody's father, a stern man in his 60s, glared at me from the living room, his face red with anger. Is this true? He demanded. Are you corrupting my daughter? Vivian stood beside him, her face pale but determined, her hand on his arm. This is not corruption, she said quietly, her voice steady despite the years of hiding. It's love. I know because I lived it once. The revelation exploded in the room, Melody's father turning on his wife in shock, his eyes wide. What are you saying? Vivian told her story, the full painful version in front of us all, the love for Claire, the fear, the choice to leave, the regret that had haunted her marriage. The room fell silent, then erupted in arguments, voices overlapping, accusations and tears. Melody cried, holding my hand tightly, her grip a lifeline in the chaos. I felt the full weight of the family fracture I had helped cause, the guilt mixing with the love I felt for her. In the days that followed, the Hayes household was divided. Melody's father refused to speak to me or fully to his wife, retreating to his study. He pressured Melody to choose family or this lifestyle, the dinners silent and heavy. At work, Sarah's gossip had spread and our boss called us in for a meeting, his expression neutral but firm. While there is no official policy, he said, relationships between colleagues can affect team dynamics. I suggest you keep it professional or consider if this is the right fit. The moral dilemma consumed me day and night. Was I destroying Melody's family for my own happiness? Was the love worth the pain I saw in her eyes every day as she argued with her father and comforted her mother, the silent tears she wiped away when she thought I wasn't looking? We tried to find moments of joy, a quiet weekend at a cabin outside the city where we could be ourselves, no eyes watching. There we talked about the future, perhaps moving to a more accepting city like San Francisco, starting fresh. Melody was ready to fight, her determination inspiring. I wavered, wondering if I was strong enough, the voice of Vivian in my head, clashing with the voice of my own parents in Ohio. Then came the ultimate test. My parents found out through a mutual friend who had heard the rumors, the call from my mother, devastating, her voice cracking with disappointment. Gemma, how could you? Do you know what this will do to our family name? The ultimatum followed: attend family therapy or they would cut contact, the words landing like blows. The sacrifices were mounting. Melody lost a family gathering invitation because her father couldn't bear it, the empty chair at the table, a constant reminder. I was passed over for the promotion in favor of a less qualified but straight colleague, the unspoken reason clear in the way the boss avoided my eyes. Internal conflict raged within me every morning when I woke up beside her in secret, the love profound yet the cost high, family estrangement, career setbacks, constant judgment from society, the stares at restaurants, the comments online when we were spotted once. One night after a particularly bad argument with my parents, I broke down in front of Melody, my tears flowing freely. Maybe they are right. Maybe this is too hard. Maybe I should have stayed in the safe lane. She looked at me with hurt but understanding, her hand on my cheek. I won't force you, Gemma. But remember what my mom said. Regret is worse than any struggle. Her words and Vivian's echoed in the silence. I had to make a choice, the weight of it crushing yet clarifying, the path ahead uncertain but necessary. The climax built as we decided to attend a family counseling session with the Hayes, the room in the therapist's office feeling small and charged. It was tense, Vivian advocating for acceptance, her voice strong as she shared more of her past, Melody defending our love with passion, and her father clinging to traditional views, his arms crossed. I sat there, the outsider who had brought the storm, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. The counselor highlighted the generational trauma Vivian carried, and how it was repeating, or breaking the cycle in this moment. During the session I had a moment of awakening, the words coming out before I could stop them. I love your daughter. This is not a phase or a mistake. It is real. I am willing to fight for it even if it means losing everything else. The session ended without full resolution, but it planted seeds, Melody's father beginning to soften slightly, though the road was long and rocky with setbacks. At work the situation deteriorated further, a major project was reassigned from us, citing conflict of interest, the financial pressure mounting as bills piled up. Melody suggested we both look for new jobs, perhaps together in a new city, The idea of starting over both terrifying and liberating the unknown, holding promise and fear. The betrayal came from an unexpected place, my own sister back in Ohio calling to say our parents were considering changing their will. If I didn't conform, the money not important, but the rejection soul-crushing, the finality of it making me question everything again. I spent nights alone wrestling with the morality. Was it fair to ask Melody to risk her relationship with her father? Was my love selfish? The societal prejudice everywhere, from awkward looks at restaurants to comments online when we were spotted, the isolation growing. Yet in the quiet moments the happiness was profound. One evening we sat in the park where we had our first real date after the trip, Melody leaning on me, her head on my shoulder. No matter what the price is worth it if we are together. Her strength inspired me, the decision crystallizing. I decided to come out publicly at work in a meeting, addressing the rumors, head on, my voice shaking but clear. It was scary but empowering, some colleagues supportive, others distant, the boss warning it might affect future opportunities, the tension in the office palpable. The drama peaked when Melody's father had a health scare, a mild heart episode that sent us all rushing to the hospital. In the quiet of the waiting room he finally spoke to me privately, his voice weak but honest. "I don't understand it," he said. "But I see how happy my daughter is. And my wife has suffered enough. Don't make her suffer more." It was a turning point, not full acceptance but a crack in the wall, the beginning of healing, or at least coexistence, the road still long. Months passed and the dust began to settle. Those scars remained visible in strained phone calls and careful conversations. Melody and I moved in together in a small apartment, finding new jobs at a more progressive firm. The career sacrifices real. I took a pay cut, but the peace was invaluable, the freedom to be ourselves without constant hiding. My family slowly started communicating again, though conversations were strained, surface-level topics avoiding the depth. Vivian's relationship with her husband improved as he came to terms with her past, the family dinners less tense, laughter returning in small doses. The awakening was complete for me. I understood that hiding who I am had been the real prison, the price high, lost opportunities, family tension, but the reward authenticity, and a love that grew stronger through the fire, the trials forging something unbreakable. Melody and I visited the balcony where it all started one quiet evening, Vivian smiling at us, holding hands. "You did what I couldn't," she said with tears in her eyes. "I'm proud." Our life was not perfect. Society still had its judgments, internal doubts occasionally surfaced during tough days, but we faced them together, the communication open, the support unwavering. Looking back at the journey from that business trip, the stolen moments in Ella, the painful confrontations and the hard choices, the betrayals and the awakenings, I wonder about the path not taken, the one where I walked away to keep the peace, spared the families the pain. So I leave you with this question: when love demands you defy everything you were taught about family and duty, is the freedom worth the irreparable damage left behind, or does the cost prove that some sacrifices are too great even for the heart?